let's talk about my top tips to prime you for prosperity. I want you to take a nice deep breath because I'm going to be honest. Now, all of these are something that is like immediate for us because we're taught to be skeptical. We're taught to be filled with doubt. We're taught to push against the man, right? And to rage against the machine and all of that. Well, hello there, prosperity seeker, and welcome to another episode of The Prosperity Approach. I am your host, Allyson Chavez. Thank you, as always, for spending your time here with me. Let's talk about my top tips to prime you for prosperity. All right, so I want you to take a nice deep breath because I'm going to be honest. Now, all of these are something that is like immediate for us because we're taught to be skeptical. We're taught to be filled with doubt. We're taught to push against the man, right? And to, rage against the machine and all of that. But the first thing we're going to talk about is probably the one that, it's obedience. It's obedience. The obedience to the laws of God and spiritual laws and prosperity laws will actually prime you for prosperity. It's amazing. So True Confessions, we love to watch 2020. We love to watch, true crime documentaries. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't. It's just, it's fascinating to get into somebody else's mind or try to get into somebody else's mind like that. But so often I'll turn to my husband, Jeremy, when it's over and I'm like, oh my gosh, do you know that if people just kept the commandments, then there would be no need for these true crime documentaries. There would be no need for all of this, right? I mean, I absolutely support the police and support freedom in this republic and all of that. But wow, if people kept the commandments, we wouldn't need jails, right? Because nobody's killing, nobody's stealing, nobody's having affairs. But obedience to the commandments and obedience to the laws of prosperity are actually literally going to prime you for prosperity. Just because there is a law decreed in heaven that says that every blessing you receive is because it is predicated or founded on obedience to a law. So an easier way to say this is there is a reward attached to keeping the law, and there is a penalty attached to breaking the law. And this is commandments, this is spiritual laws, there's even man-made laws, right? It's how God is able to stay impartial and not play favorites, and also it's very clear-cut. And when we will be obedient to the law, we open ourselves up for an absolutely amazing life of freedom and expression and prosperity and wealth and all of those things. So lean into that whole idea of obedience. All right. Another top tip is action. Taking action, and not just any action, but inspired action. And inspired action is action that is inspired by alignment. And if you've watched any of the previous episodes of late, I've talked a bit about alignment. That's why I have Align Academy, because everything is about alignment. And to align means to get into agreement with something or someone, or an alliance, to form an alliance. And so inspired action is action that's inspired by alignment, agreement for your dreams. Now, here's the thing about action. God can work with you as long as your feet are moving. You've heard the saying before that you cannot steer a parked car. So get in the car and at least put it in gear so that God can steer it and God can direct you. Even if you don't know what to do yet, just do something. And that's the thing, that anything that you're wanting to create, even if you've never created it before, you have enough in you to at least get started. You have enough knowledge, you have enough resources to at least get on the path and start moving on the path. So when you will take action toward your dreams and toward that prosperous life that you desire, even if it's just the research phase, that's still action. That's still inspired action to take, which will help you move the needle towards your goals and your dreams. And that literally primes you for prosperity, because now you're telling yourself and the universe and God that you're willing to get into action for this to be able to receive it. Third tip is trust. Oh, trust can be a tough one these days as well, because we've all been hurt. We've all been betrayed. We all, know people in the media and know people in our lives that are not trustworthy. And maybe from time to time, we haven't kept our word and we haven't been as trustworthy as we would like to be. But trust is critical in priming yourself for prosperity, because this is what trust is. Trust is confidence or the firm belief in the reliability of something or someone. That's what trust is. So if you want to align yourself with prosperity in your bank account, prosperity in your body, in your health, in your relationships, and greater prosperity and greater faith with God, with your higher power, it does require trust. That is a top tip to prime you, because trust puts you in action. It really does. And trust helps us count on God. So you got to put your trust in the right source. So I would definitely put my trust in God, in my higher power, and trust what He is, trust that He wants more good for me than I even want for me in my life, and that He loves me, and that He has a vested interest in my success, and that He's not going to judge me. He's not going to, he's not just waiting to punish me. He really, really wants to bless me. And when you will start trusting that, having confidence in the firm belief that you can rely on God and you can rely on His power and His omnipotence and His benevolence, then it actually allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally allow yourself to do. You start taking risks. You will allow yourself to feel uncomfortable. You'll allow yourself to get a little bit awkward, do things that you've never done before, because you're in that trust piece and you're taking action in that. When I first got started, as of this recording, I've been in business for almost 13 years, and God was like, you need to build a business and it needs to be online. And I was like, okay, how? And He was like, just start going. Just do what you can do. And so I had a certification that I had to finish at that time. So I was like, all right, first I'll finish my certification and I'll work on other people as part of my certification. And then, that was when podcasts started becoming really popular. And so I started listening to different podcasts about business and about online and talking to other people who had coaches and things. Like, that was me getting into action, even though I had no idea how to build or create or scale an online business. I knew enough to get started. I had enough resources to get started. And action and trust are really two powerful tools to use together. All right, next tip, generosity. Being generous. And I'm not going to lie, this one was a hard one for me back when I was all about scarcity mindset and I didn't know how to think in prosperity terms. But being generous was actually one of those things that popped me into prosperity thinking. So if you have a little bit of a hard time with generosity right now, just know that I feel you. I hear you, sister. I hear you, brother. I've been there too. But generosity was a really beautiful way to pop me out of scarcity and into prosperity. One of the things that will pop you out of that poor mindset and that broke mindset is this adage: I can afford to be generous. I can afford to be generous. And it doesn't mean to what amount, right? Or it doesn't matter what amount of generosity. It doesn't say I can afford to be generous $100,000 worth. It's I can afford to be generous. I can afford to be generous with my time, with my love, with my attention, with my money, with my prosperity. One of the laws that is critical that you obey is if you want more money to come, you must be willing to let it go. That's one of the laws, actually, of prosperity. It's part of the law of flow. And so those things that you can let go of because what you're saying when you're being generous financially, whether you're tipping somebody or whatever that is with being generous with somebody, maybe you're going through your closet and there's still a piece of clothing that you really love, but you feel like somebody else would love it even more. That can feel a little bit like a sacrifice, but that's you telling yourself and God and the universe, I can afford to be generous and let this article of clothing or let this money bless somebody else's life because I have so much I can afford to give it away. And you You open up the law of prosperity, the vacuum law of prosperity. When you do that, you really prime yourself for prosperity when you are generous. So here's the thing about prosperity, or generosity rather, in priming the pump. This needs to be done consistently. You don't just put $1 in the tip jar and then you're like, all right, Lord, where's my millions of dollars, right? This needs to be done consistently, because this becomes just a way of being for you. This just becomes part of your identity, that you can afford to be generous. And maybe it's not a tip jar, but maybe it's to a cause that you really believe in, or humanitarian aid of some kind, or like anybody or any organization that helps with the poor, helps with the needy, helps with people who are in, disasters, natural disasters, or things like that. Be generous with that and donate your time, donate your money to that. Because be generous, because it's a very simple act, but if you do it consistently, it rewires you and it primes you for prosperity. It actually increases your ability to receive more money. It increases your trust in God, because you start seeing how God is showing up in your life, and increases your faith in the unseen. And so it's just like, it really is a law of increase, being generous. All right. Super, super powerful exercise. Practice being generous. And again, maybe it starts with a quarter. Maybe it starts with $1. Maybe it starts with $500 for where you're at. The amount is not what matters at the beginning. It's the intention that matters, and the attitude and the energy with which you are letting go of this resource that you have is with generosity. I can afford to be generous. All right, next tip, giving compliments. When you sincerely give somebody a compliment, it's acknowledging to that person and to yourself that you received something that benefited you. So maybe it's somebody's really beautiful smile and you say, wow, you have such a beautiful smile. Or I just love that color on you. You make that color so beautiful. It's acknowledging that you've benefited, or your life has been enhanced or enriched in some way. And sometimes we're really stingy with compliments. Have you ever noticed that? Or sometimes we deflect compliments, right? If somebody gives us a compliment, we're like, oh, no, you, this, that, and the other, right? But start practicing being a really great receiver of compliments from others, but also practice giving sincere compliments, because that does prime you for prosperity. Just because you're like, wow, like look at all of the ways that I experience wealth and prosperity in my life through other people, and experiencing other people's talents and other people's skills and other people's beauty, things like that, things that you can really acknowledge and appreciate. Compliment them. Finding the gift in every circumstance is another top tip for you, and not always an easy one, finding the gift, but this is also a universal law. This actually activates the law of polarity. And the law of polarity basically says that every situation has the same degree of goodness and badness in it. So if a situation is catastrophic, the situation also has that same amount of miracle in it, but you've got to find the miracle. And you've got to find the gift in all of the situations and all of the circumstances. And again, it's one of the more difficult ways, but I put it in here as a top tip because we're experiencing a lot of contrast right now in our own personal lives, probably in our economic lives. There's a lot of us that are experiencing some turbulence right now, and finding the gift in the circumstance instead of complaining about the circumstance or feeling powerless about the circumstance really primes your prosperity pump in very tangible, very real ways. Because when you start finding the gift, it calms you down. You start feeling more safe. You start feeling more grounded. You actually activate that part of your brain that's looking for solutions instead of that, animal brainstem part of your brain where you're just working on instinct. You start activating that human spirit and that resilience and that resourcefulness when you start finding the gift in the circumstance. And something really interesting too has happened that I have found over and over and over again when I've been in difficult circumstances and I'm actively looking for the gift all the time. I'm actually able to navigate my way through that difficult circumstance a lot faster. It shrinks the amount of time that I'm in the hard or that I'm in the suck of the circumstance. Isn't that interesting? And it's happened over and over and over again. And so when you'll find the gift, you'll actually get through that tough time much faster. Whereas we tend to lengthen the time that we're in our wildernesses when we're just, screaming and crying and resisting the wilderness and not finding the gift in the wilderness. So try it. It's not easy, but it's so profound. That's why it made my list of top tips. I've got 2 more top tips. All right. Slow down. Slow down. We are moving faster than we have ever moved before in like the history of the world. And I think we have whiplash, and I think all of us are getting a little bit motion sick from all of it. But slowing down is critical, but not easy for us to do. We have to be able to slow down. And in previous episodes, I've talked about white space. And we can't be going at this breakneck speed where we're either off or on full tilt all the time and expect to be able to create the life we want, create the help we want, the money we want, and not just the money we want, but the experiences that we want. That being able to experience the money, the plenty, the health, the wealth, the relationships, all of those things that we consider what make us prosperous. If we are so busy that we can't be present, you're not prosperous. And so really slow yourself down throughout the day and practice it. This is a skill as well. Practice slowing down and being present, creating that white space. Critical to prime your prosperity pump is just to slow down. We have this lilac bush in the front of our house, and I have been very intentional that every day, so we'll go for a walk after dinner every day. That's a really good way to prime your prosperity pump as well. So there's just a little bonus one thrown in there for you. But I'll go smell the lilac bush because I love the smell of lilacs so much. I love the smell of lilacs. And just for those few seconds, I will just smell the lilacs. And the lilacs don't stay in bloom for very long, but it requires me to be intentional and to remember, I got the lilac bush over there, and remember that and go over and, smell the roses, smell the lilacs, slow down and experience it. And my number 1 top tip, not number 1 necessarily in importance, but the last top tip that I will share with you today that will prime you for prosperity is celebrating. Celebrating on the regular, like every day, celebrating the small victories, celebrating the large victories yourself and with others. I've got 4 kids. My baby just graduated from high school like 2 weeks ago as of this recording. And I remember when I would celebrate that I could take a shower at the end of the day when I had young children. Potty training was in a time of celebration all throughout the day when my 3 boys, as I was potty training them, not all at the same time, of course, but lots of M&Ms and celebrating and happy dances and singing and swinging around was going on during those potty training years and that potty training time. But we're not all in that anymore. Some of you are, not all of us are, but stop waiting for the great big huge thing to celebrate. So sometimes our 30% is 100%, and celebrate that. Sometimes our 10% is 100% of everything that we can give, and celebrate that. I'm coming out of a very dark patch in my life right now, and finally seeing some light and feeling better physically and in my health and in my body. And it was touch and go there for a little while. And sometimes just like getting myself out of bed and then getting myself moving was all I could do. And it was just, okay, I got out of bed. I got out of bed. We can do this. We can do this. We are so strong. And so celebrate that. Celebrate those things. Celebrate those times when you allow yourself to cry. Celebrate those times when you have overcome something really difficult. But the big things and the little things, like, wow. And I'll tell myself, like, when I celebrate, I'm like, I am a queen. I am a goddess. Look at this. Look at how much God loves me. Oh, I knew I could do this. I got this. I love this. Thank you. So celebrate vocally, cheer up and down in your body, move your body, do the victory stance or the victory dance. Go buy yourself something if you want to celebrate that way. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can celebrate. It doesn't have to cost any money, or you can spend a great deal of money on your celebrations and your victories. But it is so critical that if you are going to live the good life and you are going to really tap into prosperity and live prosperity as who you are, that you recognize how powerful you are in doing good and in who you are being and who you are becoming. And we're taught to have this false sense of modesty. But wow, when you crushed it, then you claim it, girlfriend and boyfriend. When you crushed it, claim it. And when you overcame it, and when you even started on it, and even if you failed along the way to do it, because we all do, continue to celebrate that you keep getting up. What is that Chinese proverb that success is falling down 7 times and getting up 8? So just keep getting up. Just keep getting up and celebrate. Celebrate that you're here. This really is the most miraculous, magnificent, magical time to be alive in the history of the world. And just let God show up for you and show out for you. He is a God of miracles. Keep celebrating that. Let others celebrate you as well. And look for God's fingerprints all over your life every single day. I promise that they're there. And remember, prosperity becomes you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.